Lesson 7-8, Division Measurement Number Stories. The focus of this lesson is for you to be able to divide and solve a measurement number story, for you to discuss division strategies for a measurement number story, and again, for you to be able to solve those measurement number stories. But first, let's start with our mental math and fluency. If 1 minute is 60 seconds, whenever I'm doing problems like this, I like to make a T-chart, and I like to do it like our in and our outs. If I go in with 1 and come out with 60, what did I do to get that answer? Well, I multiplied by 60. If I write my rule up here, it's going to make it a lot easier for me to come up with the right answer. So if I have 2 minutes going in, how many seconds is that going out? Well, 2 times 6 is 12, and 2 times 0 is 0. Again, 5 minutes. Well, 5 is going in. In order for it to go out, I got to times it by 60. 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times 0 is 0. And finally, 10 minutes. 1 times 6 is 6. And there's 1 0, 2 zeros, so I need 2 zeros in my answer. So my answer is 600. This is a good strategy to do when converting anything in order to make sure you're coming up with the right answer. Read this problem to yourself as I read it out loud. It says, Emily poured an entire 2-liter container of apple juice into 8 separate glasses. Each glass held the same amount. How many milliliters did each glass hold? Well, since I'm converting it from liters to milliliters, I started out doing that right away, and I put 2 liters times 1,000 will equal 2,000 milliliters. Now in my next step of the problem, I knew that I was dividing that because it even says I'm putting it into 8 separate glasses. So I had to take the 2,000 and divide by 8. The numbers I want to use with partial quotients is I either want to use 1, which would only have been 8. Wow, I would have been here forever doing it that way. Or 10, which would only have been 80 when I multiplied back. Still would have taken a long time. So I did it by 100. 8 times 100 is 800. When I subtracted 0 minus 0, I got 0. Again, 0 minus 0, 0. When I got 0 minus 8, I knew I had a trade. The 2 becomes a 1. The 1 I took away from the 2 goes in front of the 0, and now 10 minus 8 is 2, and 1 minus nothing is 1. Looking at the number 1,200, I knew I could take another 100 groups of 8 out of it. So I had to prove that by multiplying back. 100 times 8 is 800. Again, 0 minus 0 is 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. 2 minus 8 I can't do, so I had to trade or borrow from next door. I took the 1 away from there, making that a 0, and put it in front of the 2. 12 minus 8 is 4. Well, because I knew 400 was still a really large number, I looked at the 100, which came up with 800, and I knew if I cut that in half, the 800 would be 400. So I just cut the number I multiplied in half. And I did 0 times 8 is 0. Put that in the ones place. And then 5 times 8 is 40. When I subtracted, I came up with 0. My answer for how many milliliters did each glass hold? Well, I had to add up my numbers, 100, 200, 250 mLs. And that's how you figure out the problem for that type of question. So the strategy I used was converted. Again, I could have looked and said, well, 1 liter was going to equal 4 glasses. And so when I multiplied, cut that in half. To make the 2 liters, I would need to double that to the 8. And again, I could use a simple number line, and I could have made one myself, and I could have put 0 down here for milliliters, and then I could have put liters up here, and I could have filled that in and wrote 250, 500, and went all the way up to 2,000. Notice I'm going up by 250. Okay. And again, this would be 1,250, 1,500. I didn't quite make my line long enough. Okay, then I could have figured out where the number 1 was at 1,000. Oops, sorry about this. Let me click off of that, and I'm going to want to erase. But I could have done it by using a number line. So whatever method you want to do, and when I would have figured out that I needed to divide by the 4, again, sorry about that, this was the number 1. So if I would have wanted to divide by 4, I would have came up with 250, because if I would have had 2, twice as many, and divided by 8, I would have came up with the same answer. Yet another strategy you could have used. Next, I want you to turn to Math Journal, page 248. I'm going to walk through the first one with you because 248 is a math assessment check-in. So I'm going to give you yet another example of how to figure out your answer. And then when I get done, you're going to pause the recording and you're going to do the rest of the page on your own. So a question you always want to ask yourself is, what are you trying to find out? And what do you already know from what's written? So look at number 1. It says, the skating rink can be rented for a full session or a half session, which is half as long as a full session. A full session is 7 hours and 30 minutes. The student council wants to rent the skating rink for a half session. How many minutes long is a half session? So, what are we trying to find out? Well, it tells you in that last sentence that they want to find out how many minutes long a half session is. So that's what we know. How can we use that information to find out how long that half session is? And how can we use a measurement scale to help us convert between hours and minutes? Because if a full session is 7.5 hours, and we want to figure out minutes, we're going to have to come up with that answer. So again, what will our number model with the unknown look like? So what we're going to do first is we're going to figure out, well, they said it is 7 hours, which I know I have to multiply by 60 to find how many that is, minutes that is. And then after that, I'm actually going to add the 30 minutes, that is the additional half hour. Once I figure out what that answer is, and notice how I'm using a double parentheses, because I'm going to first find this answer out, and then once I have that answer, then I'm going to add the 30, which is also in the parentheses, and I want to have that answer before I divide it by 2, because they only want to rent the skating rink for half that amount of time. And that's going to equal hours. Okay, all the information was from up here. There was not one thing I was trying to pull out of the air to try to find. So it would go 7 times 60. Well, 7 times 6 is 42. And 7 times 0 is 0. So I put in my 0. I'm going to take 420 plus 30, which would equal 450. And now I have to take 450 divided by 2. So again, I could use partial quotients or traditional method, whichever is easiest for me. Let's go ahead and let's do both. Remember our acronym, Drexler Middle School Bobcats. Excuse me. So I'm going to divide by 2. One number at a time. 4 divided by 2. Well, 2 will go into 4 2 times, so I write it down. I need to multiply back. 2 times 2 is 4. Notice where I place the 2 above the 4. So when I multiply back, that's where my answer goes, is underneath the 4. Now I subtract. 4 minus 4 is 0. Now I bring down the 5. And I start all over again. I divide. What's 5 divided by 2? Well, I know 3 is too large because that's 6. So it's going to be 2 again. Now I have to multiply back. 2 times 2 is 4. Now I need to subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1. And now I need to bring down. I need to bring down my final number, which is the 0. My new number here is 10. I start over again. I divide. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So I put the 5 above the 0. Multiply back. 5 times 2 is 10. I subtract. 10 minus 10 is 0. There is not another number to bring down, so my quotient, my answer, is 225. But what are the units? Meaning, was it 225 hours? Was it 225 days? What were they asking? Well, what they're asking is they're asking for the minutes. So it's 225 minutes. If you notice, the actual problem for Math Journal page 248 is on this screen. I was reading out of my math book, and I was reading a separate one. So don't pay attention to what I was reading on the other screen. It is what you see for number 1 here. But all the information I gave you and what you need to write needs to be written for Math Journal page 248, number 1. Once you get done with that one, I want you to do 2, 3, and 4, and then bring it back to me for the assessment check-in. Stop the recording now and do Math Journal page 248. If you need for me to read numbers 2, 3, and 4, stay on this page. Number 2 now asks, if it costs $1,250 to rent the skating rink for a half session, and the student council has $500 for renting the skating rink, they must raise the rest of the money by selling tickets to students who attend the celebration. If they charge $6 for each ticket, how many students must attend to make sure they have enough money to rent the skating rink? Again, $1,250, that's what we have. The student council says it has $500 for this skating rink already. But then we need to divide by 6 because that's the amount they're going to charge for each ticket. And we have to figure how many students must attend to make sure they have enough money. So once you figure out this answer, then you're going to divide by 6 to come up with your answer that you will write in over here. Number 3, Tara, the president of the student council, wants to decorate the handrail around the skating rink with balloons. She wants each string tying a balloon to the handrail to be about 5 feet long. If she has 60 yards of string, how many balloons can she tie? You're going to have to figure out yards to feet. And number 4, Tara also wants to set up 5 water coolers outside the skating rink to allow skaters to take a break and hydrate themselves. She buys 80 gallons of water to distribute evenly to each cooler and 8-ounce cups for drinking the water. How many cups will each cooler of water fill? Write your number model with the unknown. You need to do Math Journal page 249 on your own, and then go check that in the answer key. Once you've checked Math Journal page 249, you're going to do Math Journal page 250 next. Check that also in the answer key. And finally do Math Masters page 278, but that I need to see, so bring it up to me when you complete.